Welcome back to Cidery from Scratch. I'm David and Rachel is behind the camera. She's going to be zooming in and out for us. Today we are making our 14th batch of cider, and the big thing today is we're using our first liquid yeast. And that yeast is White Labs WLP 775 yeast. This yeast is specifically for English cider, so we're going to give it a try. It was recommended to us by number 12 Ciders. Today our juice that we're using is 100% pure Macintosh apple juice from concentrate. As you see, we got a gallon of concentrate right here. This is from King Orchards and it is gold, so we got to be very careful not to waste any. We've got 3 gallons of water already in our big carboy here. We're gonna dump our concentrate in, and then we're gonna use the last 1 gallon of water here to rinse out the 1 gallon pitcher so we don't waste any of that primo concentrate. And then also rinse out the funnel so we don't waste any of that as well. If you like this kind of stuff, or you like learning about cider, or if you want to follow our journey as we build and start and create our own cidery, make sure to subscribe to follow along. And then if you use any sort of yeast at home while you're making cider, we'd like to hear about it, so leave us a comment below. Let's get started. All right, we're gonna give this one last stir vigorously to make sure it mixes well, and then we're gonna take our specific gravity readings. So let's get to it. All right, looks like we're sitting at 1.070. Perfect. Now that our apple liquid is good to go, we're going to dump in 6.5 grams of Go Firm that was mixed with about 30 milliliters of warm tap water. This will give the yeast a little bit more nutrient so they can survive and thrive. Then we'll dump in our yeast. Oh, did you want to see? White Lab 775 English cider yeast, as mentioned before. First time using a liquid yeast. I think I need to cut it a little bit more. With this yeast, it says it's 1 dose or 1 segment of 5 grams is rated for up to 1.048 specific gravity. So ideally, we should be making a sweet cider here. We'll see what happens. All right, now that we're good to go, we pitched our yeast. We're gonna top it off with our airlock. It's got a little bit of sanitization liquid in there. We'll let this sit for a little while until fermentation stops, and we'll check back in. It's been 2 weeks, and we just tested this 5-gallon carboy of juice, and we are sitting, by luck, by chance, right where we wanted to sit. We are at a 1.020 specific gravity, which means there's a decent amount of residual sugar in this mixture, as well as that ABV percent where we're looking at 5 to 7%. This one is sitting at 6.6% ABV right now, so perfect. We tasted it ourselves. I thought it was pretty good. It's not necessarily dry, which I like a dry cider, but for this batch, we're trying to make a sweet cider. Rachel tried it and she said it has a little bit of a alcoholic aftertaste. So next we're going to bottle 2 gallons, and then we're going to use just over 3 gallons a couple different ways to see if we can add some other flavors and dilute some of that alcohol. So let's get started. For the bottles, we're going to prime with 2 different types of sugar. We're going to use an apple juice to give it a little bit more of an appley flavor. Use 10 ounces of this with 1 gallon of juice. And then we're going to add 30 grams of corn sugar to the other bottles to give it carbonation. Now for the next 8 bottles, we will use this 100% apple juice to prime it, and we'll use 10 ounces. Our bottles are all set for this batch. We got 18 all in all. Over here is our sugar for priming, and over here is our apple juice for priming. And since we've never primed with apple juice before, we added 1 bottle in a plastic container so that we can do the infamous squeeze test to know when carbonation is ready. So in 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, we'll give this plastic bottle a test, see if it's firm. If it's not, we'll let it sit for more time, but essentially whenever this bottle is firm, we know that carbonation is good to go. Now let's get started putting the rest of this juice into our differing carboys. Last thing we're going to do today before we clean up is we need to take these 3/4 of a gallon jugs of juice and add 100% Macintosh juice from concentrate to 1 for secondary fermentation to see what sort of flavors we have there. And then we're going to add store-bought 100% apple juice to the other one to see what sort of flavors and what have you occur during secondary fermentation there. All right, we are all set for today. These bottles have been conditioning for 2 weeks now. As you can tell, because we bottled with residual sugar, we have some safety precautions here. We've got a big garbage bag that's encompassing a cardboard box where all those bottles are inside, just in case we had some bottle bombs while we're doing these residual sugar bottling experiments. So let's open her up and test out the pressure on the plastic bottle. All right, so this is our plastic bottle. You can definitely see how it's popping out. Even the bottom is kind of popping out a bit, giving it a squeeze. Oh yeah, there's not much squeeze you can do. So these are probably good. We're gonna throw 2 bottles in the refrigerator, taste test them tonight to make sure, and then if they are ready, we'll throw them all in the refrigerator so that they don't ferment anymore and they don't have excess carbonation. Batch 14 has been sitting in the bottles here for 2 weeks, so we wanted to quickly see if they are ready, if they had enough time to bottle condition and there's enough carbonation. So let's do that real quick. Ooh, not much carbonation.
I was trying to figure out, this one's with corn, sugar, right?
Yep, it's gonna need more time.
You can already tell.
Yep. It tastes pretty good, but needs more time.
What is good?
It's a sweeter cider.
Yeah, very good, but
All
no
right,
carbonation.
So this one is the one we bottle conditioned with apple juice as the priming sugar. So this is the one where we tested the plastic bottle and we're like, holy crap, that's got a lot of pressure.
Okay.
So let's see.
Oh, I was wrong.
So this one does have more pressure.
It's interesting.
All right, now we want to figure out if that's enough or if we need to wait another week.
Wow, I think it's enough.
Really?
Yeah, but you tell me.
Oh yeah, you don't want any more than that.
Yeah.
That's good. That's crazy.
I wouldn't say it's overboard by any means. It's not like overcarbonated, but I wouldn't want any more than that.
Definitely not anymore.
So now
Wow.
what, cold crash or?
So for the bottles that we conditioned with apple juice as priming sugar, those are ready to go. Those need to be sitting in the refrigerator so they don't ferment anymore.
Well, that's what I meant by cold crash.
And then the ones we made with corn sugar, those need more time, maybe even 2 more weeks.
Yeah, I had almost nothing.
But we definitely don't want this one sitting any longer.
No.
That's perfect. Cool. All right, we'll check back in when the next bottles are ready. Alas, it is time for us to taste test our batch 14 bottled cider. But before we do that, we want to roll some camera footage of us kegging a couple other carboys from this same batch. Unfortunately, we don't have this keg available to taste test today because we drank it all. It was a big hit over the last couple of weeks when we had a few groups of people over for our tours. They really loved it, they really enjoyed it, and they drank it all before we could taste test it with our bottled cider. I ended up kegging it for 4 days at an average of 18 to 20 psi across those 4 days, and then once it was ready, we left it at about 4 psi to serve. And I think it had perfect carbonation, and it tasted awesome. It was definitely a sweeter cider, but it wasn't too tart, wasn't too sweet. Definitely a semi-sweet, but tasted really good. Now back to the testing. Today we have the first 2 samples of batch 14 that we bottled quite a while ago. We've got batch 14, the original mixture. This one was bottled with corn sugar. Then we have the same mixture, however, this one was bottled with apple juice as you saw before. What we noticed with the apple juice is that it bottle carbonated a lot faster. This one that was just sugar actually took probably about twice as long. I think with the apple juice it was about 2 weeks, maybe a little bit less. With the corn sugar it was almost 4 weeks. But we'll see how much carbonation is in both of them now. They have both been in the refrigerator for a long time, quite a few weeks now. One thing we want to note, this is a sweeter cider. There is residual sugar. To prevent bottle bombs, you saw before we kept them in plastic wrapped cardboard boxes. And then once we have them right around the correct pressure, correct carbonation, we left them in a cold environment, which was a fridge.
Keep it cold, keep it cold.
That's right. We've had a lot of questions about our process and why we don't necessarily stabilize. We learned from CiderCon and meeting with several different head cider makers at a couple Virginia establishments, at a Oregon establishment, that until you're able to upgrade to a filter and a filtration system for your juice, you need to make sure that you keep it cold and keep any reserved yeast in a hybridation state.
Yep.
Because if it warms up something like, I think it's around 55 to 60 degrees, anything above that, your yeast will reactivate and start eating any of those residual sugars, create carbon dioxide, and potentially give you some bottle bombs.
Okay.
But we haven't had any issues so far, and this is what, like our third, fourth time doing some residual sugar bottling, and we haven't had any issues yet. Just make sure, keep it cold, keep it cold, keep it cold. All right, let's get to it. This is batch 14 original mixture with corn sugar. Very minimal fizz.
Like moderate, yeah.
Moderate. Smells a lot like apple. Not a lot of carbonation, but
it's good. It's a good amount. I
Yeah.
mean, it's got bubbles all the way down. We're gonna drink the whole thing, apparently.
one for you, one for me.
Jeez.
You can definitely see bubbles. That's good.
It's pretty color.
Smells awesome. Smells like apples.
Any idea on a percentage here?
Good question. These are both at 6.6% ABV, sitting at 1.020 residual sugar.
Really? It's above 6? I would not have guessed that with this at all.
Yeah, that's because there's a lot of sweetness in it.
I really like this.
It is good.
I could drink enough where the alcohol wouldn't hit me yet. That's like easy drinking. That's the easiest drinking we've made. As far as like, it goes down so smooth. Like I use crisp a lot. This isn't even crisp. This is just like smooth. This is like,
yeah. So this is I wouldn't say this is crisp because it's not as carbonated.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
It's definitely a smoother, easier drinking, little bit sweeter, still a semi-sweet, I would say, but there's a lot of apple character.
I wouldn't like it any sweeter than this personally, but this is almost perfect for what I like to drink.
It's very, very drinkable, very good.
Yeah. Do you think it needs more carbonation?
I think so.
Man, it's good though. Holy cow.
So this one we know is going to have quite a bit of carbonation. This was bottled with apple juice.
Oh.
Thanks, Tank.
It's okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You can go back to your bone. Oh yeah, that sounds like the perfect amount of carbonation. That was good. A little less apple smell. Mm-hmm. Which is strange because this one was bottled with apple juice. I can still smell it, but not nearly as much.
Oh boy. See, we'll have to see how that tastes, but that's a lot. That's too much.
I think it might be too much, yeah.
I mean, if you have to wait 5 minutes to drink it, because you're gonna get it all over your mustache.
I don't have a mustache. You're just talking about anybody?
Sure. Anybody with a mustache. Michael? Michael's got a mustache.
Daniel has a mustache. There's people with mustaches out there. That's not too much carbonation though. It's probably just the way I poured it.
That's interesting.
Not nearly as sweet. It's right on the edge of a semi-dry, semi-sweet.
It's hard to get any smell out of that.
Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of apple. I would say that this might have dropped quite a few specific gravity points. So this probably isn't at a 1.020 anymore. It's probably like a 1.010, probably half the sweetness.
Yeah, definitely drier, definitely less sweet, but I still...
Let me pour it so it doesn't bubble out.
Wouldn't you still count that in the sweet category though? Like
I
that's
wouldn't
not
count.
a dry cider, is it? I wouldn't say it was.
It would be semi-dry, semi-sweet.
Yeah, like
Somewhere
it's still
right in the middle of that.
It's still got.
It still has sweetness
sweet.
to it.
Yeah, I definitely still pick up some sweet for sure.
That's good. It's really good.
Yeah, overall they're both very good. I personally still like this one. Super easy to drink.
You like it sweeter?
Yeah. I don't know what it is, the addition of the sweetness or less carbonation that makes this so easy to drink, and that's dangerous for me because I like this a lot.
I think carbonation, if you have less, makes it a lot easier to drink. This was with the White Labs English Cider Yeast WLP775, which was suggested to us by Number 12 Ciders, actually. They're based out of New York, talking to them back and forth on YouTube, and they suggested this yeast. So it's definitely pretty good for a sweet cider.
It is. Absolutely.
Enjoyed it a lot. And I like the liquid yeast.
Yeah. You don't have to fool around with waiting and stirring, and it's a little bit more expensive, right?
It is, yeah. It's like,
I think it's maybe a better quality, or maybe
it's twice
it's
as
liquid.
expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably harder to preserve because they have like 2 to 6 month expiration dates on those, whereas everything else is like 2 years if it's dehydrated.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a wrap from us. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's episode, and we will see you next Thursday.
And remember, always follow your dreams.